What is up, everyone? Welcome back to my channel for another episode of We're Gonna Have Baseball Today. So, I promised you guys a couple of days ago on my podcast and also on my social medias that I would react to the top 100 players of all time from ESPN. Um, it doesn't give you like the guy who did it or the girl who did it, or I think it was just a team effort to make this list. But I'm just gonna react to it. I grazed over it a little bit. I see a bunch of YouTubers are actually doing this as well. So I would like to join them and see what I get the reaction out of. If you guys like this video, like, comment, and share on the link below. And also follow my sports podcast, Sports Bible Podcast with my friend Rob Green. What else? You got to do all the stuff. Like, comment, share with friends, subscribe. Follow my Instagram at RD Sports Blogs. Check out my last video, which will be up in this right corner over there, which was about me talking about players that can relate from an MLB player to an NFL quarterback, which I was very fun. I also got your submissions for my next one I'm going to do, which is going to be MLB to NBA. So I'm excited to do that, but without further ado, we're going to get right into this. So we're going to open it up right now. Okay, to start off, we have players 100 to 51, which is it'll be a little harder to judge than the top players. It says that the methodology, I'm not going to read it, but it's a C full methodology here. It's based on like player value, peak, Hall of Fame, accolades, like just players, like how you rank a player of all time. So we're going to get started real quick. Barry Larkin at 100 doesn't do much for me. Again, like the 100 to 51 is going to be tough. There's going to be some outliers that you're going to see that I actually watched the YouTube video on this type of thing, and I noticed it as well. But Barry Larkin at 100, I don't hate that. Good player, shortstop for the Reds on those really good teams, Big Red Machine. Phil Negro, 99. This guy will come into play later when I found out a guy that wasn't on this list. And knuckleballer, great pitcher, 5,000 innings, Jesus. But he just, it's weird to have a knuckleballer on here to me. But moving on, 98, Jim Tomei, that's cool. I don't know how much I love a DH on here if it's not David Ortiz, but he was still a great hitter, 612 home runs, over 500 slug. Adrian Beltre, 97. Like I said, it's this list, like we're going down like Charlie Gehringer. I don't know who you are, 1924. Duke Snider, this low, I was actually kind of surprised because he used to get judged all the time by with Mays and Mantle. He was like the third guy. It's kind of like today, I guess it would be like Acuna, Soto, and Betts in a way. Like outfielders that are because Trout's kind of like on a different level, and then it's like the next three. So I feel like that's kind of like the modern day era of what Snyder, Mays, and Mantle were. But he made the list, which he should have, obviously. Like we're seeing here, like 540 slug, 295 average, 400 homers, 66 WAR. That's pretty good. Bryce Harper, that's surprising, only because he's only played. He's not done yet. Like he's been playing for 10 years now, I think. But if you look at his resume, it's well deserved. Like 520 slug, 390 on base. He has 2 MVPs as well, so that helps him a lot. He hasn't won yet, which he left the Nationals and they won, so we all know that story. But I'm not mad. John Smoltz, I don't know. I don't know. Maddox and Glavine, I think, were probably better. But I'm not even sure if Glavine's on this list, to be honest. I know Maddox is later in the video. Yeah, I'm not sure about this one. Fringe top 100, I'm okay with. So, 93 is a good spot for him. Doc Holliday, Roy Halladay, rest in peace. 65.4 WAR. Threw a no-hitter in the playoffs. World champion. Great pitcher. Just made the Hall of Fame. A lot of wins, 200 wins. He, really fit, the era he played in. The era that he was in was, right before this one. And it was the end of, the innings eater, get the win guy rather than, the Ks per 9. 5-inning starter this year and moving to relievers or openers even. So he fits here. I like it. I don't know if he's top 100. It just didn't seem like it, but maybe that's because he's just so new. He's so modern. I mean, you think top 100. Oh, when you think of the word all time, you think of guys in the 70s, 80s, even before that. You think of old school guys. So maybe that's why. 91 Ryan Sandberg. Good player. I think very underrated player. I think he coached a little bit too. Yeah, I think he was a manager for the Phillies a little bit ago. And second baseman, great numbers for a second baseman, 280 homers, 344 on base, 452 slug, which if I do my math correctly, that is a 796 OPS, which is right around average, or I think a little bit above average. Pudge at 90. Don't hate it. Great player, great hitter. Played on a ton of teams. Wow. I didn't realize that. I didn't realize about like the Astros and Nationals. I knew about obviously the first four, but I think that he is not underrated, but I think people kind of forget when you think about top catchers. You don't really think of him as a top catcher, but he deserves to be here, I think. 89 Shoeless Joe. We all know his story. If you are an avid baseball fan like me, cheated in the World Series, threw it away, gambled, whatever it was, but he was still a great player. Like 356 average. Like, come on, are you serious? And it's like 198 steals in 9 years. That's unheard of for nowadays. Like, that would never happen. He's unfortunately going to be known for the fact that he threw the World Series, but great player nonetheless. Willie Stargell split the NL MVP with Keith Hernandez. Won the Pirates World Series at 39. Great player. 475 homers, 57.5 BWAR. I think this is a good spot for him. I think that it's like I was talking about in my podcast. Like, if you're gonna have say a guy should be lower, then you have to find someone to replace him with and move him above. But I think this is a good spot for me. Carlton Fisk, catcher, great numbers for a catcher. 376 homers for a catcher. That's a lot. Played a long career as well, and I think he's like not many like newer sense guys know who he is. Roberto Alomar, Mets fans hate him because he's like Lindor, people want to say, but slick fielder, solid hitter, really good player, who was known for most of his time with like Toronto, Baltimore, Cleveland, those kind of days. Jim Palmer, one of the better pitchers of his generation, was a part of a dominant Orioles pitching staff. 2.86 ERA, 68.5 BWAR. Good spot for him. Paul Molitor, 306 average. I think he's like the modern day, like I don't want to say DJ LeMahieu because he's a lot better than DJ LeMahieu, but like that type of hitter, like spray the ball, contact, and he also hit 230 homers, which is nothing to slouch at. Roy Campanella, I like this year, like Negro Leagues, Brooklyn Dodgers. We're gonna get into the Negro Leagues in a little bit too, because there's some guys on here that are in the Negro Leagues, and I'm gonna talk about like why that's like important and like how it's interesting how they found a ranking for them just because of a different league. Great catcher. He was one of the he's a legendary catcher. He was like Berra before Berra in a way. Eddie Collins, Philadelphia A's, Chicago White Sox. I'm sorry, I don't know who you are. Probably good though if you made this list. Connie Mack, I know who that is, so I know who that is, not A's. Mike Piazza, with repping my Mets. I think he's better than Pudge, so I'm okay with this. That's not what you're gonna see me in this video a lot. Like a lot of judging, catcher to catcher, first to first, like in that sense. I like this spot for him. He wasn't a great defensive catcher, but the best offensive catcher of all time. And yeah, Dodgers, Marlins, Mets. Great hitter, great career. Well-deserved Hall of Famer. Robin Yount. He's okay. He's good. He's not okay. He's a Hall of Famer. But I think that his numbers are a little bit to be desired for, but at the same time, you have to take into account the era. Like, it's very hard to judge eras because shortstops didn't have to hit at all. And we're going to get to that in a little bit when I completely disagree with the guy that's above Robin Yount and above some of these shortstops, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Hank Greenberg, little old school player, but I know who this guy is. I know it's surprising, right? Baseball fan, I know a player, but solid hitter, very solid hitter, over 1,000 OPS, 330 homers in 17 years. So good for him. Chipper Jones, think he could be a little higher. I don't like him. I'm a Met fan, but you gotta give credit where it's due. He's switch hitter, and it says here like if Mickey Mantle's a no-brainer is the best switch hitter, then Jones is leading candidate for the designation among National League hitters. Yeah, he just raked, and he stopped raking, he raked again. 468 bombs, 1,600 RBIs, 85.3 BWAR, and he's a Braves legend. You're not going to take that away from him. Vlad Guerrero, not junior for you new fans. This is his dad, who was arguably better. This dude hit anything. I think this is a good spot for him just because he kind of was just known for his bat. He had a hose in right field, but he kind of tailed off defensively, very quickly. But a good spot for him. Cap Anson, 1870s, wasn't quite around yet. So we're going to move on from that. Rod Carew, I love the fact that they have this guy in this list because I am all for the new age, the OPS, slug percentage, isolated power. WAR, all those type of numbers, OPS plus. But Rod Carew is a pure hitter. 92 homers is not a lot for a career, but 3,000 hits is, and he was the king at slap and go, slap and go, slap and go. And I really like the fact that he's on this list. Juan Marichal, very good pitcher. Giants, Red Sox, Dodgers. I don't know if I'd have him this high. I think he's more of like an 85 to 100 guy, but it's a good spot for him. Like it says here, he's like a wacky pitcher, threw from all different angles, big leg kick. But he deserves to be on this list, definitely. Willie McCovey Cove. If you have a thing named after you, you probably should be on this list. Big power guy, first base, 520 bombs in an era where home runs weren't a big thing. So, yeah, I'll give him the credit for that. Here we go. That's a nice picture. William McCovey, Juan Marichal, William Mays. Wow, they had a dominant team. Justin Verlander, he deserves it. And this is a good spot for him only because he's not done yet. But I think this will be around where he lands when he finishes, unless he wins like another Cy Young. Al Kaline, Tiger as well. Not that Verlander still is a Tiger, but he once was. Very good player. 480 slug, right fielder. Couldn't get one more homer, bro. No, great player, legend. Harmon Killebrew, a little bit older on the side as well, but his nickname is Killer, suggests a slugger with a mean streak. But Killebrew was listed at 6 feet, 195, and he kind of played like in like a weird era. Like he played like after the Ruth days and like right before, like not right before, but like he was like kind of stuck with like Willie Mays and those players. Like if you see here, like yeah, he played like in the 70s, 80s, and so he was kind of stuck in that weird way. Ozzie Smith, I don't like this at all. I understand that shortstops didn't have to hit, but you have to have an OPS of at least 750. His OPS, let's see, 337, 328, so that's a 665 OPS. You would be cut so fast in this day and age. But he was a great defender, Rich. Yeah, I know. 665. Are you serious? I don't think he deserves to be this high. Maybe he deserves to be like 95 to 100 because of his defense, and I understand like the backflip. He was cool and all, and I understand old-timers baseball. But at the same time, you have to be equal. That's why I said Jim Thome, like as a DH, like it's tough for me to put him on this list because he didn't play any defense. But he was fringe top 100. That's why I'd put Ozzie Smith fringe top 100 as well. Manny Ramirez, great hitter. You're gonna see later in this list that steroids didn't really move guys too much, at least. But great hitter, just a raw power hitter, great swing. But his PEDs got to him. He'll never make the Hall of Fame because of that. Brooks Robinson. I think a very like solid player, like for like compared to the list. But 268 bombs, 1,300 RBI, 78.4 BWAR. He was the rock on an Orioles team, the third base, 22 years. Like can't make that up. Cal Ripken should be a lot higher based on where Ozzie Smith is, but also I think he's great. I don't think he's the greatest shortstop ever. I think there's guys that are better than him pretty convincingly. I think Ripken kind of gets like stuck with the whole Iron Man thing with him, and I think that kind of hurts his value a little bit because that's all you remember when you think of Cal Ripken. You don't remember his 430 homers. But at the same time, I think this is a good spot for him just because of his value of that day and age, and like the hitters didn't have to do as much, even though he was still a great hitter. Max Scherzer, 65. Yeah, that's a good spot. He's better than Verlander, and I'm going to compare him to that because of the modern dayness. New York Mets. Eddie Matthews, good player, third baseman. I like the spot. Not much to say. David Ortiz is what I was talking about before, Jim Thome. I think that when you are a designated hitter, you have to be like a clutch elite hitter. Not that Jim Thome wasn't, but David Ortiz was better. He won more. So that's why I think this is a little high for him because he's a DH, but 63, not mad at it. Congrats on the Hall of Fame as well. Mel Ott played a long time ago, but a good player. 511 homers in 1926. Wow, that's pretty impressive. Yeah, you deserve a spot on this list. Carl Yastrzemski, his I think his nephew is Mike on the Giants, but great player. Red Sox. He was like the last guy to win Triple Crown before Miggy won it a couple years ago, or not even a couple, a long time ago now. Whitey Ford, probably the best pitcher outside of Mariano on the Yankees. Probably best starting pitcher ever for the Yankees. Lefty, dominant. He just had it all, really. He threw a ton of innings. 2.7 ERA is really good. Miggy, there we go. We're just talking about Miggy. Little high, I think, just because his defense suffers a little bit. But he did win Triple Crown, and he has a 310 hitter for his career, 500 bombs. A legendary hitter. I think he's the best, one of the 2 or 3 best right-handed hitters I've seen play. I'm also only 21 years old. I don't have that much experience seeing baseball yet as compared to like older writers and older content creators. Steve Carlton, I think he's kind of similar to Jim Palmer, like how people view him, but a great pitcher. He was on a ton of teams, but known mostly for the Phillies. And, yeah, he was highlighted on those great teams. Pete Alexander, yeah, like 1911, 1917. I don't know much about him, but a 2.56 ERA with 5,000 innings, which is wild compared to nowadays. It's a good spot. Dave Winfield, good hitter. You don't think of him as a top 100 players, and you look at his numbers. 465 homers, like, geez. 283 average, 475 slug, right fielder. So, yeah, good for Winfield. Reggie Jackson, I don't love this high. I think, 65 would probably be a good spot for him, but 560 homers is nothing to sniff at. I just think, like kind of Ripken, he gets known for the one moment, which was the Mr. October moment, which you should not forget, obviously, but you can't forget how good of a player he was. I think a little bit high, but not high for me enough to have that big of a reaction to. Lefty Grove, older pitcher, like 3,000 innings, like or 4,000 innings almost, 300 wins, good for him. But yeah, like I don't know much about him. Like when it comes to like, it's hard to compare Max Scherzer to Lefty Grove because they played 100 years apart, basically almost. Oscar Charleston, this is the first Negro Leagues guy. I'm happy they incorporated these guys, which I think that what's hard for me to not understand, but like how do they find those rankings for the guys? Because like the Negro Leagues was a different league than the big leagues, but at the same time you can say that vice versa. So 364 average, 449 on base, 615 slug. Like I feel like if this guy played in the major leagues and played against everyone, he'd be higher on this list with those numbers. But unfortunately, we will never know that because of what the Negro Leagues were. And I think that because of that, you're going to see more guys on the Negro Leagues in this list. And I think it's good for baseball that they have them. Clayton Kershaw, 52. Like this a lot. I think that people forget he's only 33 years old. He's the same age as Jacob deGrom, who we will get into later, by the way. But good spot for him. He's better than Scherzer and Verlander. Not mad about that. Ernie Banks, legendary player. 330 on base, 500 slug, 512 homers. Let's play too, you know. He also was a Negro Leaguer for 1 year before he went to the Cubs for the majority of his career. One of the best Cub players ever, the first black player ever in Cubs history as well. So that's the top 100 to 50. So now let's go to 50 to 26. Okay, Bob Feller, 50. A little bit of an older pitcher. Good pitcher. 266 wins, 3.25 ERA. If you notice, the stats I read are based on the era. Like for Max Scherzer, I'm not going to read his wins because wins aren't as important as they were back then, like when it comes to like judging a pitcher. But back then, that's all that mattered because they pitched 8-9 innings every 4 days, it seemed like. So 266 wins is good for this. Frank Thomas, 49, the big hurt. He's a monster hitter. I don't know if he's better than Miggy, though. It's close, so I'm not mad that he's like right there. But that's a good spot for him. Nap LaJoy. I didn't really know much about him until like I said the name and like people I know are like, oh yeah, Nap LaJoy. He has a team named after him. Really old school player. Yeah, fiercely competitive. LaJoy was the American League's first gray hitter, and his stats show that. Okay, Warren Spahn, good pitcher, really good pitcher. I like this spot for him, maybe a little high, but I like that. Ichiro, this is a little high for me, but actually maybe not. This is a good spot for him. He's Pete Rose of the modern era, the way he hit. He probably would have broken Pete Rose's record if he played his entire career in the major leagues, and he played Japan first. Legendary Mariners hitter, lefty, just a slap trick, but put on a show in BP, I'll give you that. Wade Boggs, really good hitter. He's known mostly for like the Hall of Fame thing. Like he took like the cap was the wrong team or whatever it was. Like he picked a team he only played on for like 1 year. But 328 average is really good. Yeah, the easiest way to sum up Bog's legacy is batting average. So there you go. Tony Gwynn, speaking of batting average, I want to say the most underrated hitter of all time because of the fact of how he played. This dude, it's incredible that this dude never struck out. Like, the guy struck out, I feel like, more in one game than this guy struck out in 2 weeks. It's crazy. 338 average, 3,000 hits. You can't say enough about this guy. He just kind of revolutionized the way people hit in that time. And was kind of the last guy before like the steroid era, like McGuire and Sosa. So he's like, you appreciate a guy that can hit like that because it's really tough to not strike out, and he just never did. George Brett, one of the best third basemen of all time, Kansas City Royals, known for the pine tar, but great hitter nonetheless. Nolan Ryan, little high, but I'm glad they didn't put him too high because he does have 300 losses. And in that era, wins and losses mattered. Like I said, 3.19 ERA. He was the first like flamethrower of like modern times, like not like the 1800s or early 1900s. Satchel Paige, here's another Negro leaguer who played basically his entire career in the Negro leagues, was an elite, and I mean elite pitcher in the Negro leagues for the Birmingham Black Barons, Cleveland Cubs, Pittsburgh Crawfords, Kansas City Monarchs, and others. Like 2.70 ERA, 1,600 innings, 1,400 strikeouts. And it would be so cool if these guys, like, if like the major leagues like had all these guys like right away, and we could see them all play in the same time. Like you're going to see later Josh Gibson, who arguably is the greatest baseball player ever, but unfortunately we can't see how he would have done in the major leagues. But I'm really happy that they're putting these guys on this list because they are baseball players, and we shouldn't forget that. And I'm happy that Baseball Reference is starting to do something like we can see their stats, their rankings. And yeah, so that's a good spot for him. Jimmy Fox, one of the better hitters, I think one of the more underrated hitters, 530 homers, over 1,000 OPS. I think he should be a little higher on this list, but 40 is cool. I'm cool with that. We talked about Roy Campanella before, but Yogi Berra, forget his championships. He's still a great player, but his championships are what got him this high. Yeah, like 358 homers for a catcher. That's really good. Jackie Robinson, kind of like the pillar for the Negro Leagues and like breaking the color barrier. If you haven't seen the movie 42 at Chadwick Boseman, I really recommend it. It's a really good movie. Gives you chills almost, but without like everything, like his numbers are great, but just what he had to go through is like, it's incredible to like think of it nowadays on like how like the world we live in now, on what this guy had to go through just to play baseball. And there'll never be another one of him. And I think that's really incredible in itself. And I'm happy he's this high on this list. Joe Morgan, another great player, another great second baseman, actually. Rest in peace. He was like the leadoff guy on those Big Red Machine teams. Him and Pete Rose would run the way, and he just did a really good job with that and deserves everything coming his way. Tris Speaker, a little older guy, but I've like, he's well known to me. Fit the way that those guys played, 345 average, 928 OPS, 117 bombs in over 20 years. Wow, I didn't know that. That's a long time. A little bit of typo there. Josh Gibson, we're just talking about him. This dude would arguably be the greatest player of all time if we weren't judging it based on league and just based on baseball players. Unfortunately, that's how people judge it, just because you can't say that a Negro leaguer is the best MLB player of all time because he didn't play in the MLB, just like you can't say the best MLB player is the best Negro League player because they didn't play together. It's like I said, if this guy played in the major leagues, I think he'd have over like 850 homers and like 374 average. That's unheard of. That's a good on-base percentage. And this guy did that for, 16 years. Memphis Red Sox, Pittsburgh Crawfords, Homestead Grays. Great player. Like it says, like the white Josh Gibson, the black Babe Ruth. Like these like nicknames they would come up with, just how great this guy was. Pete Rose. Controversy. Pete Rose is just filled with controversy. Great player, though. If Shoeless Joe's on this list, then Pete Rose has to be on this list. And hits leader, can't discount that. Like I said, he was kind of on those teams with Joe Morgan. Let's see right here. Joe Morgan, yeah, like 72 to 79. Here you go, 63 to 78. Bob Gibson, I think he should be a little bit higher just because he is the reason why the mound got moved down. He had the greatest pitching season ever. And not to, besides that, he was still a really good pitcher, 2.91 ERA. Jacob deGrom was on his way to doing that this year, but he got hurt, unfortunately. But with Bob Gibson, I think modern day kids need to realize how good this guy was. The year of the pitcher. He's the reason why it was called the year of the pitcher. Sandy Koufax, arguably the best Dodger player ever, best pitcher ever for the Dodgers. Lefty, 2.76 ERA. A lot of people call Kershaw the modern day Koufax, and I think it's rightfully so. But Koufax is better, so he deserves to be over him. Mariano, good spot for him. I'm happy they didn't put him too high. He is still a closer, just like I talked about with the DH. Like Mariano only threw 1 or 2 innings. He was the best at it, though. Not even close. He's the best ever to be the closer. 652 saves, 2.21 ERA. It's not a debate that he's the greatest reliever of all time, but at the same time, you can't put him top 30 because of his position, unfortunately. But it's still a really good spot for him. Albert Pujols, this is where it gets a little interesting. Still playing. His career is very end-loaded. Like his what do you call it? Like the start of his career was a lot better than the back half. But still, look at these numbers. Like 679 homers, and he's still playing. Like that's crazy. I don't know if he's gonna. Is he still on the Dodgers? I'm not sure. But 297 average, 375 on base, 544 slug, 3,000 hits, 99 WAR. He'll get 100, which is kind of like a pillar number in a way. Johnny Bench, in my opinion, the best catcher ever. Again, he was on those Big Red Machine teams, and wow, this dude could play. You see the size of this guy's hands? They got the commercial with the baseballs. He got like I think 8 baseballs in his hand. I can't fit 8 baseballs in my hand. Derek Jeter, 28. I don't think he's better than Pujols. I don't think he's as deep away from Ripken, I guess you would say, because Ripken was in like the 60s. So I don't know if I can go this high with Derek Jeter. His numbers are still really good, like 310 average, 377, 440, was a champion. But I think if you have him this high, you have to have Ripken like at least like 5 or 10 behind him or in front of him. So, and also I don't know if he's better than Pujols. I don't think he's better than Bench. Like I don't know. I don't see that. I think the spot is good for Jeter, maybe a little high, but like I said, like you can't have him here if there are guys right before him better than him, and that's what I think about it. Okay, Roberto Clemente, exactly 3,000 hits, 317 average. Unfortunately, died at the end of his career on a plane crash, but I think that he might get his number retired around the league like Jackie Robinson did, 21. Just everything right about baseball, plus his play is incredible. Good, really good spot for him. A-Rod, okay. He's never going to get the love that he deserves because of the steroids and like he's kind of like he's a hated player. This guy is arguably a top 10 player ever. 696 homers, 2,000 RBIs, like 930 OPS. Like that's crazy. And he 57 bombs 1 year. But the steroids, he's a lot better than Manny Ramirez. And I think he should be top 15 at the lowest. Okay, now the top 25. We got Christy Mathewson. It's hard for me to judge him. Like I'm not gonna like a 2.13 ERA is ridiculous in 4,700 innings and 373 wins is ridiculous. But he played in the 1900s, so it's hard for me to judge that. But when I see lists of like top 10 pitchers of all time, he's usually 2. And I kind of agree with it looking at these numbers. But again, it's so hard to judge like basing eras off pitchers. 24, Randy Johnson. I think I'd put Mathewson above him just because like he had a 2.1 ERA. He had a 3.3 ERA. He had 370 wins. He had 300 wins. Strikeouts, he's got him beat. Innings, Mathewson wins. But WAR, he's got a better WAR. He played a little bit more, I think. But the big unit, terrifying face if you're in the box. But good spot for him. I think I just flip-flop him and Mathewson. Ricky Henderson, I don't know about 23. Maybe top 50. But the best base stealer ever, arguably. But I think that he leaves something to be desired for me. I don't know what it is because I'm looking at his stats now, 3,000 hits, almost 300 homers. Maybe it's just the fact that like I have a hard time having a guy top 25 that's known for stealing bases. But with the criteria that was given with like the peak, the value, he deserves to be here. So I don't really have that big of an issue with that. Tom Seaver, 22, should be top 15 to be honest, but the best pitcher in Mets history for now. He was the ace of the 69 team, the Miracle Mets. There you go, right in front of us. Threw a no-hitter with the Reds. Cy Young, the award is named after him. So can't really complain about this. He does have 300 losses, and that matters for their standards. Like I said, you base stats off eras. You're never going to – in the NBA, you're never going to care about Wilt Chamberlain's three-point percentage because there was no three-point line. So, like, you can't really compare him to a guy nowadays chucking up 10 threes a game. Rogers Hornsby, really legendary player that not many people talk about, but a 358 average and 300 homers in the early 1900s is ridiculous. And this is a really good spot for him. I think he could even be higher. Frank Robinson, I don't know. I hear this guy's name. I just think like class and like elegance. I don't know why. Again, great player. He was on the Reds, Orioles, Dodgers, Angels, and Indians. And, Triple Crown winner, 586 bombs. This is a good spot for him only for the fact that we're getting really low now. So, like, it's going to be hard for me to say that guys can be higher when they're 19th of all time. Like, that's still an accomplishment. Mike Schmidt, 18, the Phillies. Arguably the greatest third baseman ever. 267 average, 380 on base, 527 slugging, 548 homers. Him and Brett are kind of like the guys that everyone talks about, and I can't blame them. Like, there's really good players. So, Roger Clemens, we all saw the controversy last week. If you're not going to take into account steroids, this is a great spot for him. Dominant pitcher, 7 Cy Youngs is ridiculous. Joe DiMaggio, really good player. Could have played longer, it feels like, because of injuries, the war, and everything that was going on in that time. So 360 homers, center fielder, 325 average, really good player. He's also part of the Yankees, so he's going to be known as a great player. Just if you look at the Yankees' great players alone. Mike Trout, I actually like this. I think that this dude has a shot to be the greatest player ever based on like WAR and counting stats, and he's got 310 home runs. He's been playing for 10 years. If he stays healthy, God willingly, he's going to hit 400 no problem, 500 maybe. And if he plays like 7 more years, well, what's he? I don't even think he's 30 yet. If he plays 7 more years, you say he's 30 a year. Yeah, he'll hit 500. And that's if he's 30 a year. He's hitting 40 a year nowadays. He was on the best start of his career. I don't think people realize that before he got injured. And it's just, I really hope he stays healthy. And I really hope this team makes the playoffs for once. Just get this guy to the playoffs. Greg Maddux, I don't know if I'd have him over Clemens, but the steroids bias is going to come into play a little bit. So I get that. Kind of like goes against everything that everyone says nowadays with pitchers. Like, oh, well, what's his velo? Like, you don't care. He's going to throw a little two-seamer. He's going to cut it in on you, and you're going to strike out every single time. The guy barely walked anyone, just control artist, and a great pitcher. I can't really say much about him. Ken Griffey Jr., he should be top 7. He's great. 630 homers, 284 average. Arguably the best defensive center fielder of all time. Yeah. He should be higher. Honus Wagner. Griffey's better than Honus Wagner. He's just better. He's a better fielder. He's a better hitter. Just nothing you can really debate me that on. Pedro. Wow. Over Greg Maddux? Okay. I think a guy we will talk about later is the modern day Pedro, but he had that like bully attitude, but at the same time he was crafty as well. His changeup was like stupid good. 219 wins. He was just a winner. He was not afraid to come after you either, like with his fastball, not like his fists or anything like that. No, I mean like he wasn't afraid to like attack you like with his stuff. He was not afraid of any hitter, and I think that boded well for him. Stan the Man Musial. This is great for him. This dude made, I think, over like 22 All-Star games. And he played 23 years, 24 years. He's arguably the best player ever in Cardinals history, and I don't even think it's close. Maybe Bob Gibson. He could have hit 300 with a fountain pen. That's a good line. He's a legend, and 10's a really good spot for him. I'm really happy with that one. Walter Johnson, Big Train, I think his nickname was. He's like similar to Mathewson when you think of like old school pitchers. You think of him and Mathewson. I agree with this. Like this dude was so good. 417 wins. Like a 417 wins is like having like two ERA nowadays, probably even lower. And he had both. Like that's stupid good. Barry Bonds, this is going to be controversial. I thought it was crazy, but I understand. Like I think he should be a Hall of Famer. But if you look at the guys after him, you could kind of make the argument that he's eighth, but at the same time, this dude's numbers, he deserves to be the greatest player of all time, or maybe not Ruth or Mays. But after that, I think Bonds has to be top five, bare minimum. But eight, I see the biases that come into play with it. Mickey Mantle, 7. Yeah, like I said, like the biases come into play when it comes to steroids. Mickey Mantle, 540 homers, center fielder. The only thing really, like he had 760 homers. He had 536. What he hit? They both hit 298. He had a higher slugging and, yeah, way higher slugging. Not even way higher. So, yeah, I'm cool with Mickey Mantle being above Barry Bonds, but I'm not cool with Barry Bonds not being top 5. Lou Gehrig, 340 average. Like, come on. Like, Iron Horse, the luckiest man in the world, you know. Good for Lou Gehrig. This is a good spot for him. Ted Williams, I think people kind of forget about him for some reason when you think of he's the best player in Red Sox history. 520 homers. Go down. Ty Cobb, probably the meanest man that we've ever come to know in baseball, but 117 homers. He was gritty before gritty was cool to say. 366 average, 433 on base, 512 slug. Hank Aaron, legend, but I think Bonds is better, and I think Mantle's better. Bonds is probably better, but Mantle maybe. And then 2, Willie Mays, and then 1, Babe Ruth. Yeah, I mean, Babe Ruth had a 2.2 ERA as a pitcher and 740 homers as a hitter. Like, that's stupid good. That's the list. Now I'm going to just make a point I want to make. All right, everyone look at me. Look at me. How is this man not on the top 100 list? I understand he's still playing, but the stuff he is doing, he is here and everyone's here. How is Jacob deGrom not on the top 100 list? You're going to put Bryce Harper on it. I'm okay with that. If Bryce Harper is on this list, and I'm looking at the snubs, if Mike Mussina is a snub, then Jacob deGrom should be on this list, and it shouldn't be close. But besides that, I have nothing really for you guys. Besides that, I'm really happy you guys listened to this and listened to it all through. Comment who you think was a snub. Comment what you think about the list. And I'll see you guys later in the week. I'm going to come out with the MLB compared to NBA players. I'm very excited to do that. So see you guys later.